Hi everybody, so today we're going to be talking about the endocrine system, and on this video I'm just going to give you a general introduction to the endocrine system, and then in more videos we'll be talking about the different glands and how the glands work or how the hormones work on different cells and things such as that. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So on the endocrine system, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what it does. So what the endocrine system does is it makes changes in the body. Now remember, a triangle in science means changes, so it makes changes in the body, right? So there's basically two systems that do this. The nervous system does this, right? And when the nervous system makes changes in the body, what it's going to do is it's going to act fast, right? Usually within milliseconds. It's going to act within milliseconds, and the changes are short term. Okay, so it makes the changes are short term. Okay, so now when we look at the endocrine system kind of lags a little bit. Okay, so the endocrine system, it lags. So what I mean by that is it can take seconds to days for changes to occur. But these changes are more long-term. They're gonna be long, such as when you grow and things like that. That's a permanent change, right? So these are long-term changes. All right, so now, the other thing that happens is in the endocrine system and the nervous system is they both work on target cells. So what I mean by that is that I may have a cell, I may release a hormone somewhere, it's going to get into the bloodstream and go somewhere and do something on a target cell, right? So, and the nervous system may have a synapse with that cell. Now, that's one of the things they have in common. The other thing is sometimes these will actually share chemicals. So they may share some chemicals, right? And the examples are, that I'm going to give, is norepinephrine and epinephrine. Okay, so I have norepinephrine and epinephrine. Now, when these are released into the bloodstream and they go to an organ, they're called hormones. So when they're in the bloodstream, they're hormones and they're part of the endocrine system. Okay, now, if they're released into a synapse, they're going to be part of the nervous system. They're called neurotransmitters. So when released into synapse, and if you don't recall what a synapse is the connection between the end of a nerve, we call it the synaptic knob, and either organ, gland, or a muscle. Right, and it's a little space. So I should actually say synaptic cleft here. Okay, and then when they're released into there, they're called neurotransmitters because they're going to transmit an impulse. Okay, like I said, this will go to another nerve, a muscle, or a gland. So let's take a little bit more of a look at this. All right, and so let's start looking at the actual glands themselves. So if I were to go like this, okay, there's two types of glands. There's exocrine glands, okay, and then I'm going to have my endocrine glands. So what's the difference between these glands? Let me just move that back a little bit so you can see that. What's the difference between these glands? Well, here's what we have. Exocrine glands do not make hormones. Okay? What they're going to do instead is they're going to make things such as saliva, sweat, mucus, things such as that. Okay? These make hormones. Testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, things such as that is what these are going to make. Let me just move my camera right there. Is what these are going to make. These have ducts. These do not have ducts. They release right into the bloodstream, which we're going to talk about in just a second. All right? So they don't have ducts. And then these release their substances onto a surface. Okay? These release their substances into extracellular fluid, such as blood or lymph. Actually, we're going to call these hormones. So release hormones into extracellular fluid, such as blood and lymph. Okay? So that's the difference in the different types of glands, right? So exocrine glands are going to be onto a surface, like we said, saliva and sweat and things such as that. What's a duct? So if I was to go like this would be like my gland, right? Let's say like this is my sweat gland. And this would be the duct here. So let's say this is the skin here, right? You have a duct there. They actually call this a pore right here, right? Not every time you have a pore, but anyways, you would actually release this onto the skin, right? So let's go ahead and look a little bit more. I'm going to erase this real quick. And if we were to look, now what are the functions of the endocrine system? So here's my functions of the endocrine system. So the first thing it's going to be responsible for is reproduction and growth. Let's put growth and development as its own thing. So let's put growth and development. Okay, so we have reproduction, growth, and development. The endocrine system is also going to maintain your water balance and nutrient levels and electrolyte balance in the bloodstream. So it maintains those balances. Okay. The next thing it's going to do is it is going to regulate the cellular metabolism. And it's also going to regulate the amount of energy, or ATP, that the body produces. The endocrine system is also going to play a role in your immune system, right? So it mobilizes the body's defenses. Okay, so that's some of the things that the endocrine system is going to do. Now let's look at the different types of endocrine glands that we have. Okay, and now there's a lot of glands that are in the body that actually produce hormones, or a lot of cells. Okay, but the ones that are mainly responsible for producing hormones, wait, before we even get to that, how much do we make in hormones? So realistically, it would take about 8 to 9 people, depending on the source, it takes about 8 to 9 people to produce about 1 kilogram of hormones. So you can see you don't produce very many hormones in the body, right? How much is 1 kilogram? That's about 2.2 pounds. So you don't really produce a whole lot of hormones, and they have such a big effect on the body, right? So let's talk about the different types of glands that we have. So we have
you will be
hormone.
in your testing rooms today. Once again, all 7th grade students, you will be
hormone
reporting
glands, right?
to your
Or
testing
endocrine
rooms when
glands.
the bell rings.
We have endocrine glands, right? And these are going to be the pituitary. Now, if you remember, the pituitary gland is up in the brain, right? It hangs down, it has little stuff. We'll go more into this in another video. So you have your pituitary gland, you have your thyroid, which is basically in your neck. Around your thyroid gland, you have your parathyroids. You also have your pineal gland. And then you're also going to have your adrenal glands. Now remember, your adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys, right? They sit on top of the kidneys. So we're going to be going through all these in other videos, so I'm not going to really go too much into them right now. So that's those, right? Now you do have other glands or other cells or other organs that release endocrine or release hormones, right? So other organs and tissues that release hormones. Or we're going to say that have endocrine cells. Okay? Now these are different because this is not their main function, okay? So for example, you have adipose tissue, which is fat. Adipose tissue is going to secrete something called leptin. The amount of leptin you have determines how much fat you have. So the more leptin you have, the more fat you store, right? So this is going to regulate fat storage. Okay? Then you also have your thymus gland, right? And what the thymus gland is going to do is it's going to releases thymic hormones. And what thymic hormones are going to do is thymic hormones are responsible for the activation of B and T cells in the immune system. Okay, and if you recall, these are known as lymphocytes, right? So these are going to be responsible for activating those. You have other organs too that really their function is far removed from producing hormones, but they still produce some hormones. So other organs that produce hormones are the heart, the stomach, the intestines, the pancreas. The pancreas is actually considered an endocrine and an exocrine gland because it releases some stuff onto the surface and it actually releases stuff into the bloodstream. We're going to talk more about some stuff in the pancreas in just a little bit. I have the kidneys. I have the ovaries, right, which we were talking about reproduction, right? I have the testes and the placenta, right? So those are some other organs that actually produce hormones. Okay, so there's some more that, before I go from there, let me just go into the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is right next to the pituitary gland. And what it does is it's part of the nervous system, but it also releases hormones. So it's called a neuroendocrine organ. So it's called a neuroendocrine organ. Okay? So that's going to be the hypothalamus. Now, that's basically all the parts that release hormones, but there are some other ones that there's debate over whether or not these should be considered part of the endocrine system. Okay, and they're called autocrines and paracrines. So, again, there's debate on this. So here's why there's a debate. Because technically, endocrine glands, when they secrete something, they basically work on an organ far away from where they are. So it secretes it into the bloodstream that's going to go somewhere else and work on a target cell. So they secrete hormones that work or activate or that cause changes. Remember, as triangle means change. Okay, so they're going to secrete organs or hormones that cause changes in cells far away from the gland. Now, autocrine glands, they're going to produce a hormone, but that hormone is going to leave the cell, go out and attach to a receptor and cause a change in that same cell. So autocrine glands cause changes on themselves. In fact, let me describe this just a little bit. So it's going to cause change. So it releases hormones that work on the cell that release them. And let me give you an example. Your smooth muscle actually produces a hormone called prostaglandin, right? So smooth muscle produces prostaglandins. Okay, these are going to produce prostaglandins, right? So now what's going to happen with the prostaglandins is they are going to, let's say this is just a smooth muscle cell, right? And it produces this prostaglandin. The prostaglandin is going to be released, but then it's going to turn around and attach to the receptor right on the cell. So this would be my smooth muscle cell. Okay, and it's going to work right on that same cell. Okay, so when we release the prostaglandins, this causes the smooth muscle to contract. Okay, so it's going to cause the smooth muscle to contract. That's one type. So they're saying, well, because it's not going far away, it's not really it's not really part of the endocrine system. The other one is called paracrines. And what they'll do is they don't work on themselves, but they'll work on another tissue that's nearby. So it releases hormones that work on a nearby tissue. Okay, so an example of this is your pancreatic cells will secrete something called somatostatin. Somatostatin will actually go to someplace else in the pancreas and stop the release of insulin. Okay, so that's the way the paracrines work. So you see it's not working on its own cell, but it's staying all within the pancreas. So because they're saying really endocrine glands work far away and this is staying in the same tissue, what's going to happen, or this is not really part of the endocrine system, right? So that's the way paracrines work. So I'm not going to write that down, but again, somatostatin will be released by some pancreatic cells, go over and work on other pancreatic cells to stop the release of insulin. Okay, so that's it for the endocrine system, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I know this is a lot of notes. I usually like to draw more pictures and stuff. But anyways, if you like the video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and I will be doing more videos on all the different endocrine glands that we talked about. Thank you so much for watching.